Welcome to the Health and Wealth Power Hour, the podcast that provides you with the knowledge and insights you need to achieve physical, mental, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Harlon Pickett, a business consultant who's passionate about helping people achieve a more balanced and healthier life. Each week, we'll deep dive into topics related to health and wealth, including retirement income planning, innovative healthcare solutions, alternative funded health plans, and specific actions individuals and business owners can take to gain control of their finances, have access to affordable quality health care, and achieve peace of mind. We'll also be joined by innovative experts who will share their knowledge and insights on prevalent topics. So, whether you're looking to grow your wealth or improve your health, you've come to the right place. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and empowered. Let's get started. What time is it? Well, of course you know what time it is. It is time for another exciting episode of the Health and Wealth Power Hour. I am your host, Harlon Pickett. Great to have you with us today. As always, we're going to bring you some entertaining folks that really dive deep into what their specialty is. This time, we are talking to Julian Hayes. His expertise, get this, folks, is giving your team an unfair advantage. How is he possibly giving your team an unfair advantage? He works with CEOs and, of course, the folks that work with them and alongside them with that team, giving them an unfair advantage because you're going to be healthier than the other guy. And when you're healthier than the other guy, you can kick his tail. That's right. You can kick his tail because you're healthy and he's heading to the doctor again and he's fighting all these things and stress is eating him up. But you're healthy and you know how to process that stress in a better way and help it enhance you, not defeat you. Julian Hayes, thank you so much for being with us today. You are an author and, of course, the founder of Executive Health. Appreciate you being with us today, buddy. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, that was an awesome introduction. I can tell you have a voice for radio. You already knew that.
And a face for radio as well. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. Those of you out there, you get to see my doctored up picture that they put on the placard for my podcast, and maybe you get to go find me out on LinkedIn. Actually, I'm significantly better looking in person. No, I'm just kidding. I wish I was significantly better looking in person, but I'll tell you what, it's been I love doing what I do. I really do. I think that's part of what makes this so much fun for me is sitting down with folks like you who have a passion about what they do, because I have a passion of helping people. And a lot of times it's doing this podcast, right? Part of what I do in helping people is do a podcast that helps them with various different parts of improving their lives. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. I really mean that, because you went to medical school and man, you were going to be a doctor. You're going to be an ophthalmologist. You had huge plans. You dropped out of medical school, not because you didn't care, but because you did. So tell us a little bit about that journey, brother.
Yeah, you're right. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm currently still in Nashville, Tennessee, but went to medical school in New York, and New York is quite different from Nashville, to say the least. I love New York. I love New York, but I love my Southern hospitality a little more. And when you're in New York, and I'm first generation, and when you're first generation, going to college is a big deal. And so, go to undergrad, get my bachelor's. So I'm already a prince, the golden child. But then it's icing on the cake when you are going to medical school, because you're definitely the first in that. And it feels good to say my nephew, my son, etc., is going to medical school as a doctor. So you have all this kind of validation for you. So it feels good. But deep beneath me, I'm not necessarily fulfilled and just really excited about it. There's really only a couple things I really wanted to do. And when I get to New York, everyone has big dreams up there. At least it seems like that's who I ran into. They want to build the next startup. They want to get on the Broadway, all these big dreams, and they're just excited and filled with passion. And me, I'm just hanging out, go take some tests, rinse and repeat, and then I think I know my end destination. But not exciting. And then maybe halfway through the semester, I'm in the Lower East Side, And I'm talking to this lady at the bar, and she's describing her job. She's traveling, she's working, she's doing all these different things. And in my head, what I heard is she combined so many things that she's interested in life and made it a career. And so she has fulfillment and she has a way to take care of herself. And I was like, wow, that sounds exciting. And that just stuck with me. Now, it's not like one of those movie montage moments where I just immediately the next day just left everything. No, I still finished out the year, but that seed was planted in me, much like the seed was planted in me when I was a teenager. And there was an older gentleman, much older than me, who really started to change my paradigm in what I thought about health and what I thought was possible. So these seeds were planted in me. And that summer, I get back to Tennessee, and I just think I'm just not going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just not going to do it because I don't want the worst poison in the world to me, which is regret. I think that's the worst thing. I didn't want to be one of those old guys talking to teenagers saying, well, I should have did this and, blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants to be around that person.
Right.
And plus, the government would gladly give me student loans if I wanted to go back.
Yes, they will. Ask anyone who actually finished medical school, right?
Yeah. So, so I only have a year's worth of damage. So I have friends, of course, who, that bill, that's a whole other story. But so, so during that time, I just start following just my curiosity. And I know personal training, I know fitness. That's always been a lifelong thing for me. So I do that, and you're working just at a big box gym. Eventually, I think I get enough courage to go do it on my own. I shouldn't have did that. That's a whole nother story. I was not ready. I didn't know anything about business. I just knew about the subject. And in business, it's business and you need to know your subject. And so I do that, and then piece by piece over time, I continue to study and self-study. I take different courses. I find something on the internet, and if it's interesting, I'm going to reach out to the person who wrote it or something and just ask them a question. It's just an email or call. And so I start hodgepodging, putting all these things together. And for me, when I think about health, it changes as well. At first, I was just very physical. It's just like my shoulders, how fast can I run, how high can I jump, very surface level. But then I start getting a more philosophical, more deeper meaning about health. And so that starts to evolve. And so my brand and company starts to evolve as well, all culminating when I'm at a dinner and the gentlemen and mentors are asking me, what do you do? And I'm telling them, and they're like, this is like executive health. Why don't you just use executive health? And you can use the IO since it's a little more tech-based. And when I did that had two meanings. One, of course, it's going to say, okay, this is for executives, entrepreneurs, business owners, those kind of professionals. But more importantly, it leads to the meaning for me, which is really encouraging people to think of themselves as the CEO of their health and life. That we can have help from other people, just like a company may have a board of directors, but it's up to you to really be and see yourself as that chief executive.
Yeah, and anyone who's in a C level, anyone who's an executive, also knows that it's very common that you have consultants. Mm-hmm. Very common. You've got people consulting you on different things. That's one of the things that we do is we consult on healthcare cost and your spend on healthcare. So having you come in and actually talk about healthcare or the healthcare of the executives and how that can transform the business mm-hmm. into being more successful, because obviously if people aren't out with health issues or dealing with health issues, your business is going to run much more smoothly. People are going to be happier because if you're healthy, you're happier. Guaranteed. That's just a fact. There's no doubt about it. And you're actually able to deal with stressful situations and more difficult situations much better. And when you're healthier, you don't have the mental stress of not being healthy either, which that's a huge part of it. If you're already dealing with difficulties at work and then you're dealing with difficulties of health on top of that, well, the mental side of that just goes down quickly, which then snowballs into more health issues and on and on and on.
It is. And it's a very important point that you made right there when you're talking about the mental cost of not having or having poor health or not as optimal health. And also for the people around you, I think because my father was sick for probably well over a decade, and it just got progressively worse. But then even other family members and people in the community that I grew up around and seen, it's not even so much the physical thing, but it's also the people around you and the toll it takes on people just to see someone that's maybe withering away.
Right.
And you start to feel so powerless in that situation that you can't do it for them, or maybe you're trying to help, but for whatever reason, they won't make that switch for themselves, and you can't want it more than them. And so it's a lot of, that's a hard thing to really quantify and bring to the board because you can't really measure those types of things.
So let's go back to what you had mentioned earlier, and that is being the CEO of your health.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say you should run your body like you do your business, what do you really mean by that?
Yeah, if you think about how someone will run their company or their agency or firm, a lot of those same principles can be applicable to your personal health and wellness. One of the first things that you do in a business a lot of times that you can ask an owner, like, what's your company's mission? What does your company stand for? What's the values of your company? What are you aiming to do? What's your vision maybe in 10, 20 years? But if I take those same questions and say, what's your personal wellness mission? What's your values? What's your standard with your health? Have you established a standard? Can you tell me that? What is optimal health? Where do you see yourself in 20, 25 years? What does that health look like to you? They'll probably say, I just want to feel healthy and feel good. But that's not very inspiring at all.
Right.
Because the answer with their business is going to be, they'll give you logical things, but then there's also going to be a lot of emotion tied to it as well. And that's what really springs us into action. That's what really keeps us consistent. But we don't do that with our health. So the first thing when you're thinking of your body as a business is to do the very first thing you did with the business, establish a vision, a standard that you can hold yourself to. Because when times go down, we fall to the level of our standard. So if we start creating some of these things, that's the very first thing. Let's create some stakes. So it's easy to create stakes in your business. Why are you going to do this every day if you don't feel like it? Well, because I want to eat. I want to provide for my family, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the same thing with our health. Why do you want to take care of yourself to the best of your ability? The same thing can be applied. My family. I want to be able to provide for my family. I don't want to be a burden to my family. And you can go down the list. So it's just making this small, subtle tweak that we can get people locked in, that we can get the buy-in. That's the most important thing, is to get them bought in. Because we have so much great technology and more is coming on the way. But those are all external and not the foundation. That's akin to a house that has all the dressings, but it doesn't have a solid foundation yet. So that's the very first step. And then you can start to build from there.
So when you go down that pathway and you more or less have them have a mission statement on what I'm going to look like as far as my health. Now, I understand what you're saying too, because you run into people that their goal is, man, if I just make it 10 more years, I'll be right. You're like, well, wait a second, you're like 55. What are you talking about? You're like, yeah, man, most of my family all died young. And I'm like, well, okay, that doesn't mean you have to, right? I mean, you have some control. We understand that there's some genetic stuff out there, but there's a lot of stuff that can be overcome. A lot of it is self-fulfilled prophecy, because you continue to do what everyone else in your family did to cause them to die early, right? Well, everyone in my family smoked and drank. So guess what I do? I smoke and drink. Okay. Well, wonder why everyone killed over at 60, right? Okay. But on the other side of that, whenever you have that, when you have someone now that has kind of set that up and they say, okay, this is my mission statement. This is what I look for. I want longevity. I'm working towards longevity now. It seems to me that if you have gone through these processes, then you may not be looking always for that next great short or that quick fix, right? So right now, of course, we got GLP-1s. Everyone wants to take Wegovy and Zepbound and all that. I'm going to lose all this weight, and then you're going to gain it all back because you never changed anything in your lifestyle. So if you have this plan in place and you're going down this plan, that next fad diet, this drug, whatever, it's out there. It's what other people do. I don't need that because I have a plan. Does that kind of fall in line with what you're doing there?
Absolutely, because now you have something to hold to your standard. Just like in a business, if I do this short-term thing, how's this going to affect the business, not just today, but how's it going to affect it tomorrow and everything? It's the same thing with our health. The GLP-1, they're fine, but it depends on the scenario. And much as in everything in life, it's about sequencing. And a lot of times people get the sequencing out of order. They want to use this, just like there's peptides, there's peptide bioregulators, there's all these different biohacks. People are like, Julian, I want to use this. I'm doing the red light therapy. I'm doing ozone therapy. But then their diet is terrible. They can't even put together 5 days of consistent behavior, but they want to do red light therapy and different biohacks. So the sequencing is out of order. All these tools, these are just tools, but you got to get the sequencing. When I played basketball, I wanted to do, Iverson was one of my favorite players. And so I always tried to do just this crazy crossovers and everything. But I needed to work on my left hand, just my regular left hand dribble, before I worry about all these other moves and the behind the back pass. How about you just work on a regular bounce pass? So sequencing matters. But to tie that back in what you said, this is something that we can hold on to, that we can measure against. Am I mortgaging my future for some short-term pleasure, for some short-term wins? That's what you're doing. But like myself, I'm very impatient. So I know even if I do have a 25 to 30 year vision for myself, it's very tempting, especially, I'm a millennial. So I like to say I grew up in a microwave generation. So I see instant success a lot of times online, at least quote unquote success. So what I do now for myself, and I think it's good for people to do, is even if you have this long-term vision of what you want to feel like, what you want to move like, let's set some goals for like near term and then medium and then maybe a year out. But they're all still going to feed into the long term. So for example, if I love skiing or snowboarding right now, and I want to still do this at 85, let's reverse engineer. What can I do right now at 39 that can put me in place to do that? So let's say for the next 2 to 3 months, what do I need to do and work on that can start building up toward that? And therefore, you can still give yourself a way to have some short-term wins, because we can delay gratification, but there's only so much that we can do before we just need to feel like we're making progress and momentum on something.
Okay, so let's touch on that for a minute, because I think that's one of the reasons a lot of times people give up is they're not seeing the successes, right? Mm-hmm. Is that because without a real plan in place, people typically set their goals too high? Mm-hmm. What have you seen? In other words, I believe I have seen so many people just give up, but it's because I'm losing 50 pounds in the next 6 months. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks later, they've lost 5. And they're just like, I just give up. I'm not going to be able to do this. Well, hell, you just got started. I mean, what are you doing? Once again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that I can't do it because you never really gave it a shot.
Yeah. And it's funny because these type of questions, see, I come from the fitness world. And so consistency, doing things day in, day out, long-term, it's second nature to me. But in the professional world, I'm like, man, why is this not showing up yet? I've been working for a few months. Why is this not all here yet? And so it's the same thing with our health. Meaning, I talk to an owner and say, sir, how long did it take you to build this company? Man, I'm a decade in, but those first 3 to 4 years were hard. I just had to keep doing it and doing it. And he's like, you just did it every day with no results. He's like, yeah, that's what it took to build the company. I was like, that's interesting. and then sometimes they'll get where I'm going and they'll pause. They're like, okay, I see where you're going.
I see what you did there, right? Okay, Julian, I see what you did there.
And then, or I'll say, how long did it take you to put this weight on? When did you notice? He's like, well, I used to weigh about 180. I was like, when did you weigh 180? Let's see. And it's like 6 years ago. So I was like, okay, 6 years. So you put on 20 pounds in 6 years, but you want to get rid of that 20 pounds in 6 weeks. He's like, okay, I see what you're doing again there. So the first thing I do is try to find perspective.
Yeah.
Because I think that's much more powerful than me explaining any scientific jargon of saying like, well, technically you're going to use this, you have to burn this amount of calories, and then that statistically a pound a week is blah, 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 right? I I had to find something like that, tangible, emotional, that they understand. They're like, okay, it doesn't make sense that, and you can do those types of things. I've seen it, right? But there's a cost, right? So I can say, hey, if you want to get this off quicker, there's a cost to that. Do you like working out 2 times a day? Do you like being extremely dialed in like an athlete? You could shorten the curve, but do you want to pay that cost? And that's it. He's like, well, I don't know if I got time or if I want to exercise it that much. Well, I was like, cool. Then why don't you just relieve some mental stress and just say, this is going to take maybe the whole year to get this instead of 12 weeks, because I'm not willing, nor do I need to do that right now. You can still get that goal. So it's finding perspective and being realistic with those things, and also understanding how much do I want to pay right now to do that, and are you willing to do that? Because you can shorten the curve. It's just that it's going to cost more.
So in the instance where, let's say you're working with someone who's had some experience in life, and they're a little bit older. That's not unusual whenever you're now running a company, when you've had you've had ups and downs. Now you're successful. Maybe you're in your 50s or even your 60s, and I can tell you from experience, we have aches and pains where we used to not have aches and pains, and it can be a little more challenging to do some of the things that, say, a personal trainer or a coach or whatever wants us to do. How do you help folks in my age group, and it doesn't have to be in my age group, it's even younger, that have not been doing what they should have been doing, have not had something aside, but know that they need to do it? How do you get them started and past those first weeks of pain, I got to get past that, right? How do you get them past that time so that now they understand, they're really into it?
Yeah, well, the first thing is, in this scenario, I would try to make it so easy that you can't fail, so easy that it's almost laughable to them. And you also have to remember, like, when it's with exercise, there's a sliding scale of term in things. For example, this is not in this case. So say someone, you see people squatting on a squat rack with a barbell behind them. There's so many variations you can do. You can start with just doing a body weight squat and then progressing up with like a dumbbell, a kettlebell, and that. And so in this context, if they're at that level, we do the most basic thing and then you build up. And so if someone's not even walking and getting a decent amount of steps in there, that's somewhere you can start. And also, you're finding activities that has the least amount of resistance and friction to doing it. So like if I just went to tell one of my aunts or uncles, hey, I need you to get this gym membership and then drive to the gym 5 days a week. That's so many resistances. They have to get in a car, they have to drive in the gym, they have to deal with people. Whereas if I say, you got a nice neighborhood, it's well lit, safe, how about you just, after dinner, go for a 30-minute walk? Or go for a 30-minute walk in the morning. Or if you want to split them up, start your day with a walk, in your work day with a walk. Most likely then you're going to get to those maybe about 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 steps, depending on how fast you're walking. There's not much resistance there. And you just start there. Because what we're trying to do, the quicker we can get wins and momentum, the better you're going to feel, and then this becomes fun. And then you really get into it. Because I had to retrain myself on how to eat. Like my pregame meals, I was eating like a 20-piece chicken nugget and supersized fry and sweet tea at McDonald's. I didn't eat a salad until I was about 20 or 80. So I had to retrain my palate. And there was a stage where it's like, this tastes weird. Even though it's real food, it just tastes weird. And even like with lifting weights, I didn't lift weights in high school. I should have. I didn't start lifting weights till college. And that was weird. But finally, when it clicked, they had me just do a very simple routine, very simple food behaviors. And then over time, you start stacking those up. And then you get to the point where I'm at now. And that's the same thing that you're going to do with that individual that's a little chronologically older, a little wiser and more experienced. It's the same process, just like, so we've touched on food. And I think that's probably the easiest thing that they could do is just make it so easy that You can't fail at it. You can't feel bad at it. And then just continually build up on that. And then momentum will come, some sooner than later, but it will inevitably come.
So you touched on food there. And so that's a whole nother part of this journey that you have to make, because yes, you have to overcome the mental side of, if I haven't even been walking, I've got to walk. Mm-hmm. But you can't just start walking and still eating it and still continue to eat the 20-piece chicken nugget with fries and a sweet tea, right? I mean, will there be some benefits? Well, of course there will be, because now you're moving, and movement in and of itself is going to help swelling and pain of the joints and all the other things, because movement is life. Let's put it that way. But you're certainly not going to get all the results you could if you weren't eating the 20-piece nugget with the fries, the supersized fries, right? And the supersized tea. So you're going to continue to be supersized, as it were, even though you're walking. So let's talk about the two different parts, because that's a whole mindset too. That's a different change, because I think we see it each way. People say, I changed my diet and I'm not eating this anymore. I'm doing the carnivore diet. All I'm having is this. Whether you care, whether that's good for you, believe it's good or not, doesn't matter. I've heard people say, I did all this, I'm doing this. But to me, the ones who say that it's working for them have also incorporated some type of exercise, versus the ones that say, I just didn't have those results. Mm-hmm. And if you really get down to it, it was because that's what they did. They're like, this is just it. Back to GLP-1s. It's the miracle cure. I'm just taking this and I don't have to do anything else. Mm-hmm. I can still eat the sun, still eat my 20-piece chicken nuggets. I can still sit and watch my shows. I just need to give myself that jab once a week and I'll be good. Don't work that well.
No, it doesn't. And that's a very interesting thing, because I've seen a couple of different scenarios in terms of what really transforms. So one example is myself personally. For me, good exercise drives everything else for me. So that's my central behavior that I've noticed, that my nutrition is actually better when I'm much more disciplined and dialed in with my exercise. Now, for most people, that's not the case. For most people, usually good nutrition can usually lead to exercise. But I think for certain people, though, exercise and more activity starts to help, because you start getting some of those positive endorphins. Some people are like, well, I put in all of this effort in. I don't want to ruin this by eating crap, so let me try to eat differently. So that thing goes multiple ways. But in all, for most people, they're not training hard enough nearly to where exercise can out-thump a poor diet. So a good diet is a good place to start. And just like with the other scenario, when you're trying to retrain your palate, retrain your behaviors, there's also factors that isn't discussed as much. So for me, there was a cultural issue as well that you had to overcome. Yeah. And there was an environmental issue as well. So these are foods us Southerners eat. This is just all for us. You're not Southerners now. You too good for this kind of food now? You just got to eat that kind of food out? So you have all these pressures, holiday foods. So that's something else is underrated as well, is that you're going to have to say no, or you're going to have to be comfortable and saying no and being around people when they're eating something and you're not. And having them recognize that, oh, he's changed, and being comfortable with that.
No, you're right. I mean, I'm down here in San Antonio, Texas, baby. I want some fried food, right? I want some tacos, and I want, that's it. And it's very difficult to say, I don't want the tortilla with my meat, right? I just want the meat. I'm not going to have that particular thing. I want a taco, but I don't want the taco. I want the stuff that's in the taco, right? Now I want the meat and I want the lettuce and the cheese. I don't want the other part, or whatever that looks like for somebody. But it is. People are kind of giving you that side eye, like, what's this guy doing over here? And I probably don't do it as much as I should. That's the honest to God truth. But just like yesterday, we went to a little event, and I was good. I wasn't setting out to do it, but I looked, I'm like, I have an opportunity here not to have these flour tortillas, but to put my fajita meat on my plate with some onions and stuff, and to not do that. And I did.
Sounds good, though. Man, it sounds good. You're getting me hungry.
But I agree with you. It very much can be a cultural thing. I mean, growing up, I don't think we had too many things in my house that weren't fried. That's just the way it was, right? But of course, when I was younger, I was very active, so it wasn't that big a deal, right?
And I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing with even older generations, because you can say, well, I never had to do all these things that you people did. You say it's this olive oil and all this. Well, I was like, you also were a lot more active. A lot of the jobs were active. You know, I had families. There was farms. Everyone was active in the gardens and stuff. It wasn't. We're not sitting the whole time on a computer, or we're moving active. So that's the difference as well. That kind of stuff helped offset, because a lot of times one of the reasons why you'll hear recommendations of after you eat dinner in the evening, why don't you go for a walk right after, or some activities, because that's what that's going to do with your blood glucose and your insulin. And that's going to help metabolize that a little better for you. So that's one of the reasons right there that they'll tell you to go do that kind of thing. So we had people before us that were doing these things. They had no idea they were doing this stuff, but they were essentially pretty much offsetting it with little things like that. And the foods were real also. Yes. So they weren't necessarily eating so much fake food and so processed food.
Right.
Yeah. So even probably what they were cooking it in, even if it wasn't what we would say is the best now, it's still better than some of the chemically made stuff now. So I think that's one of the big things as well, because it always fascinates me. I have an uncle, I think he's 101 or 102. And it's just interesting to me that, like, he has no idea about biohacking and none of this stuff. He's just living his life.
Right.
He's just living his life.
Don't care. Right?
He doesn't care.
Yeah. I've heard people interviewed before that are in their 90s or their 100s. It's like, what's your secret? It's like, drink a bottle of wine every day, or whatever. It's always something funny like that. It's like, what? So somewhere there's a nutritionist going, no.
Yeah.
It always cracks me up. But I think about even in my younger years, for a lot of years, I didn't have a desk even.
Mm-hmm.
Right? My job was, I was moving. And when I did have a desk, for a long time, I was rarely at it. Maybe once or twice a week. And even during that week, it was just 2 or 3 hours. And then I was out doing stuff. I was out and about. And we certainly didn't eat good. I mean, I promise you, we were younger. We didn't eat good. But we were so active in doing stuff. It wasn't till a little later in life, whenever I had that desk job, that all of a sudden in pounds. I don't know how that could have possibly happened that way, right, Julian? All of a sudden, I'm living the lifestyle where I'm sitting at a desk, and then I go home and sit on the couch, and I gained 40 pounds. Well, how could that possibly have happened? Duh.
Yeah. And the thing is with weight gain and health in general is that it doesn't just come instantaneously. Just like with holiday season, if you think about it, people say people gain 5 to 6 pounds at holiday, but probably like 3 or 4 of it comes off. So that's really a net of 2 pounds. Nobody knows it's 2 pounds. You do it again the next holiday season, that's 4. You're still probably not going to notice it for the year. A net pound of 2 more pounds that year. You're at 6, then at 8, then at 10. Then you'll start to notice. But it's been half a decade since. Maybe your clothes now don't fit, but it moves so slow that a lot of times it's not really an issue and top of mind until it is an issue and top of mind, and something snaps you out of it, unless you just have this top of mind awareness.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, because I think that slow gradual thing is not always the case, because it is the freshman 50 or 40 or whatever you want to call it is a real thing. People get out of school, they go to college, they're kind of on their own. Now, I know that there's some contributing factors, but that's a real thing, because it's a very short period of time that some people gain a pretty significant amount of weight. Is that also because, once again, they don't have the same structure they had? Maybe they're not eating as well because they're not getting that food at home. And people say it's because I got older, my metabolism changed. And you'll know this better than me, but a lot of times that metabolism change is instituted by our change in our diet and our change in our habits. So it wasn't just because I hit 20 and my metabolism changed. It's because you hit 20 and stopped eating the food mom and dad was feeding you and started eating 20 chicken nuggets and a large fry and a sweet tea and pizza, because that's, what we have at college. So is that true?
Yeah, it's the behaviors, the structure changes. You're on a regiment when you're living with mom and dad. You're on a regiment most likely when we're in a regiment, whatever, in multiple phases of life, we're going to be in this pretty strict, disciplined regimen. For good or bad, depending on what that regimen consists of. But we ultimately become what our habits are. We become what we consume. We become whatever is around us. That's what we become. So in this situation with a freshman 15, because I did see a lot of people back in college who did do that. And what I saw was, I just saw a lack of control. Like you didn't have self-control. You weren't used to it. Maybe parents were very controlling and really made sure that you stayed on task the whole time. And then you were finally granted some freedom, or maybe you were granted some resources. Because a lot of times there's another scenario where guys might finally hit it big. You have a little extra money now. So now I'm going to go have some fun. And that's another scenario, because now you don't know what to do with your success. So that's an entirely different scenario, but still the same underlying reason that environment habits got out of control. And once again, self-control, self-regulation is not there. And that's ultimately what usually leads to people's demise. But I also would say, usually if something rapidly happens like that, I tend to want to investigate like what's going on in their life, like emotional stuff. Because sometimes food becomes pleasure for people. Yeah, it's pleasure. It's a way to outlet. Like I just want something sweet in my life because my day is stressful and there's a bunch of bad things going on. And so this food feels, it's just pleasure right now. And I just need some pleasure in my life. So something like that, I like to maybe probe a little bit and say, what's going on? What else is going on in your life and everything right now?
Well, I mean, think about it. So many people, this is their first chance of living on their own. Mm-hmm. They're sometimes very far away from their family, sometimes not, but very far. And they're in school. I've got to be successful. And sometimes even that first year of classes can be pretty daunting. It's not high school anymore. And for some folks, depending on where they went to school and the type of class flow that they've taken, it may be substantially more difficult. And now no one says, go to your room and study. No one is telling you are on your own getting this stuff done. So there's got to be stress involved with that, right? There's got to be.
Yeah, my first semester was my worst one. I did awful. And I didn't party or anything. It's just that I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to consistently put myself on a schedule because I could just get by beforehand on just natural ability.
Yep.
And so this was the first time where, I got to put in effort. I can't just coast. Same thing in athletics. I could get by. You could always be one of the most athletic, dominant people. And then you finally get to play and be around some NBA levels. You're like, wow, there's levels. And natural ability can only take you so far.
Right. Absolutely. So let's transfer this to another subset and see what you have seen with this. So we talked about kids coming out of high school, going to college, and the responsibility differences, the kind of the freedom. Well, what about that CEO, that entrepreneur that has a successful company? They've hit it big, right? They actually have got this thing done and they're riding high. But it's kind of on cruise control now. Mm-hmm. I'm not involved with the day-to-day like I used to. I've hired a great team. I kind of got this extra time on my hands. That's another opportunity to kind of fall off the wagon, as it were, right? To kind of all of a sudden let yourself go and indulge in some things that you haven't had an opportunity to, and it can have a dramatic effect negatively on your health. Or the other way, now that you have more time, you can take better care of yourself. How often do you see one or the other?
You see both of them. And in that case, usually there's usually a typical life cycle, at least, and I imagine this will be my case as well, is that at first you're hungry, you want to prove it, you're just worried about growing it and building it. And then at some point you have a sense of security, safety, you've proverbially made it. And then you get to this next stage where you just described, where the question of what's next comes in. And I think this is where the legacy part has to really come into fruition and play a spotlight of what now it's time to really mold and shape your legacy. And so what I mean by that is not even just legacy within the business, because that's doing well, but legacy with you personally and the effect. Because a lot of times this is a great stage to where you can start mentoring other people, start pouring into others. And that's another way to keep yourself healthy. One of my mentors, in fact, he changed his health around for the sheer fact that he started to mentor a lot of younger business owners. And he wanted to have more energy to mentor that. And he got a lot of value out of that. And also being around younger people makes him feel younger. And so you want to be able to roll with the young people at that time. So that was another incentive. Then also, usually these people may have a family by then. You want to see your grandkids. And then I always say, do you want to just see them, or do you want to be an active participant with them? And that's two totally different scenarios.
Yeah.
And so that whole legacy thing there is, it's essentially you're reinventing yourself for the next phase. You know, it's no coincidence also that you see a lot of sometimes businessmen, they start maybe even get into politics or other leadership things in at that phase. Once they built it, they're like, okay, this is the next thing, to be more of a servant, ushering in a more servant role. And if that's the case, and you are going to be more of a servant now, to be a servant, you need energy, you need health, because if you don't have that, then you are the bottleneck in terms of being able to serve to the best of your ability. And so I think both those scenarios, you have some people who go on a hedonistic treadmill, but then you have others who just maybe need to sit back and contemplate and see what's next for the adventure and time to reinvent myself. Because let's see, who did I see? Oh, I saw Jeff Bezos, I think recently. And you can see when he first started Amazon, he was very just scrawny and everything. And now you see him, he works out now and different things. Same thing with Mark Zuckerberg. I saw that he was, I think he's doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And not that you have to go do that, but I thought it was interesting that these guys, I guess at this point, they're like, I got bored, or I needed to change up something, and I want to pick up these different habits. I wish they picked it up earlier, but better now than never, right? And so that's the same thing in this case with this CEO here, is that think about the legacy, think about the servant and being a servant. And then that's going to help drive your health. Because a lot of times these people very few people just love to work out, just love to run, just love to do that. Those people, is easy to get them. I'm probably one of those people still. I just love it. But most people, it's like, I'll do it, but if something comes up, I'd rather go do that. So that's why I have to, that's where I have to try to find these other things of like what really gets you motivated, what motivates you. And some people, it's still competition. So some of these guys are still super competitive. And so they're like, well, I might not be running a company, but I still want to stick it to this guy or stick it to someone who did me wrong 20 years ago. So I say whatever is your motivation, as long as it's not too toxic, I say leverage it.
Okay, so when we started the show, I began by telling folks that having good health for your team gives you a success, the potential success over your competitors. So kind of talk about that unfair advantage. Talk about what that really means. Drive a point home to a team or to someone that's on that team out there right now that's listening, that he or she can take this back to the others and say, we need to do this because this is going to make us better. What is that thing? What can you say about that really can drive that point home that will make a huge difference for someone out there?
Yeah, if you think about it from an organizational standpoint, every single facet is affected by health in some form or fashion. Of course, any healthy organization starts with the leader. We've discussed that enough around there. But looking at the organizational standpoint, the way the business world is changing now, people have more options than ever, in my opinion now. Even when I go down the street now and some of these jobs like at McDonald's and a Smoothie King, and people are not doing those jobs because there's options now. There's this internet, right? So the competition, and even mid-level jobs and above now, there's more competition now. There's more options. And so the first area, talent attraction, talent retention, that's a key area as well. People are no longer just a high salary is not just going to do it. More and more people are looking for work-life integration now. So that's one key aspect as well. Like, how is this benefiting? How is this going to affect my life as well? So if you are an organization that has wellness inside of its culture, legit wellness, not just lip speak, but actual emphasis on wellness, this is attractive to a potential employee because they're seeing someone that get a good salary, but I'm also someone that's looking out for me as an individual. I'm not just employee number 300 at this company, but there's a little more value in me and my overall health. Now, if we're looking for another area, which is common, is productivity and performance. And we think about claims, and you probably see this a lot. And I think with a lot of wellness initiatives, that's usually one of the things that people can look at now, or at least I hope so, is to see with these activities that we're doing, has the number of claims gone down? What's that looking like? Is that right? Is that some right in the area that people could do that still?
The interesting thing is that you bring that up, and this is one of the biggest issues with wellness programs, is there is never any definitive data that proves out that the wellness program has made that kind of impact. Very interesting, because logically, you would think so, right? Logically, you would think, well, the data is going to be crystal clear. It's really not. What we have seen actually makes a bigger impact is people taking interest in their health in another way, which is getting preventative care done, actually seeing a primary care physician. But guess what that does? That doctor says, you need to change your eating habits. You need to exercise. So it's right back to the wellness part of it, but it's just the tracking. It's very strange, Julian. I think it all has to come together. It's all part of it. Yeah. But multiple studies that different wellness groups have done, it just doesn't show that wellness plan alone has made the difference. Maybe more long-term data will show it and prove it out. But so far, it's been kind of a weird little deal. You would certainly, it's logical that it has to be that way, but it's not coming true yet. It's weird. Yeah. I'm just telling you, it's weird.
Yeah, no, because I've seen mixed data on that, and just like you said, it's not just, it's a multitude of things, because and this kind of ties into the question that you asked previously. And so we mentioned talent retention, talent attraction, productivity, and performance. And you think about things like absenteeism, and that's a big one that people maybe not taking out. But I think there's something even more expensive, and that's presenteeism. That's people who are showing up, but they're not nearly close to full capacity of what they could be. Those are people who are highly inefficient with their time, not nearly as productive and effective as they could be. And that's a bigger issue. There's a multitude of reasons for that. That could be, if you're very tactical and granular, maybe someone's having an issue of focus and cognition. Maybe other people, excess weight. Excess weight is inflammation, and that's going to affect that. But then when it's this workplace thing, and kind of going back to just the claims, when it's an organization, in my opinion, you can't just look at just one thing like you can with the individual. We got to think, this person probably has financial stress.
Right.
Or this person may be worried about a job. Maybe this work environment is not conducive to these people. So it's so many different things right there. And I think that's probably what more needs to shift in the future when you're talking about wellness in an organization, is that it's not necessarily just getting you to exercise and lift weights more and eat more smoothies. It's also the actual environment in itself, because you spend a lot of time here. And so it would be in your best intention for both parties to really nurture this thing and improve it.
No, and I think you make a very valid point there, because many companies may have a very toxic work environment, and their answer to whatever's going on is, you know what, let's give everyone a free gym membership.
Yeah.
That'll do it. What? No, it won't. What, like 3% of your population will, ever continue? Maybe 10% will take you up on that, but only 3% at best will continue to go and have any impact. That's not doing it. And no one's staying at that job because you gave them a free gym membership. That ain't going to do it. And I think this is one of the problems that we have seen with wellness programs. And I believe that is another reason why we can't get any great data, is because there is not enough participation. Mm-hmm. There is not enough engagement in them overall with a company to give us the kind of data that's making the impact on the claims like you talked about. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't get people to participate, what does it matter?
Yeah. And so that's where, once again, one of the extra steps that is skipped there is a lot of times you're just throwing things that you think people want. Whereas probably say you probably should get input and then you can mold it. So a lot of times, even just like if you're programming for someone individually, it would do you well to, what I do is just think of this as an audit, to collect some data up front, to essentially see how you are living right now. And then you can start to forward some type of plan there. Because I remember one of the worst engagements I went to go speak at a company, and the people were not excited to be there. And I could just see it. I mean, I was thankful for the opportunity. Anytime I can go speak and work on my public speaking, I'm grateful for it. But the leadership team wasn't there. So this wasn't effective. It wasn't going to do anything. It was a one-off thing of just, hey, come talk on this. Let's cross this off the box and rinse it and repeat until next month. So that's not going to do anything. So I think a lot of times we can talk about it, and wellness in a corporate sense is harder to quantify. Whereas like if you bring a sales consultant in and we want to work on in getting more sales, increasing that's pretty black and white.
Yep.
But soft skills like communication, emotional intelligence, wellness, that's harder to quantify at scale. I can do it individually easily. There's a lot of things you can do there. But when you're thinking about scaling, that gets a little more difficult to do.
Yeah. And, kind of going back to your claims thing, I want to point out what you just said, that it's very easy to see that this person who started doing, we had a great program, an actual really great program for wellness. And now we have decreased the number of diabetics we have. Right? So that's going to be seen on the claims data. Mm-hmm. Or is it? And the reason I say that is because if what they were doing is getting their care at their primary care physician, and unless they were taking a high-level GLP-1 or an expensive insulin, it doesn't really have that much of an impact on the claims. What it does have an impact on is attract and retention, right? That part of retaining those people, of having a healthier workforce. It's removed some of the absenteeism. It's done some other things, but it's not on the claims. So there's some interesting parts of this that can have an impact, but what's everyone looking to actually do? They say if we do this, it should make an impact on our healthcare spend. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't have to spend as much on our healthcare. That's not always the way it translates by having that wellness program. And it's really, we're redefining some wellness programs too, especially with GLP-1s, by putting in a program in many cases that is part of a wellness program to see if you're even a good candidate for it. Because maybe you're not. Maybe you are just looking for the easy way. But that program has to include mental wellness, your physical wellness, to make sure that you're doing the things, you're exercising, you're going to get the most out of this. And it's not just, I'm going to do it for 3 months and I'm out.
Yeah. I think, and also if you think about it, it's a lot of times you could probably do some kind of sales campaign and see results in one quarter and get a direction. But with something like this, you're not going to see much in a quarter at this kind of scale. You're going to need like a year to really see something. And to tell a company, hey, you're going to spend this money initially and do this, but it's going to really come back and probably double, maybe potentially pay dividends, maybe 2-3 years down the line. And you're like, well, we can use that money to X over here and get that now, right? And so that's the thing as well. This is such a long game. Whereas a lot of other initiatives, because I have friends who are consultants more in the marketing sales, and it's just bada bing, bada boom, bada boom. This is what you're doing. But like other things, these soft skills, like we just said, it's there's a lot more nuance involved, and I think that's usually and I think that's can be a competitive advantage with the right owner and leader that recognizes that, because you can indirectly improve your bottom line, which is what most business owners want to do, but you're not going to do it necessarily by, like you said, reducing healthcare expenses. You're going to improve by increasing output and effectiveness. Maybe these people see their clients getting better sales, more sales, retaining clients because of their customer service and their work, because now the people that are doing this work are in a much optimal, more healthier state. And that's probably the way that you are increasing that compared to just reducing expenses. But then again, the central thing is, and people in corporate love this, how can you see that? How can you directly tie that, oh, since Johnny over here lost 20 pounds, he's made more sales, but was it just the 20 pounds that made Johnny a better salesman? Or, did Johnny improve his sales skills? Did he study or something, right? And it's probably a little bit of all, but that's one of the conundrums.
Well, that's right. But also Johnny lost that 20 pounds. He's a little more confident.
Mm-hmm.
He actually feels better. He is more attentive to what's going on when we're having our sales meetings. He's not tired all the time. There's so many things that go into just that loss. He's eating better, so he's got more energy. All of a sudden, his sales are better. It is tied in, but once again, it's hard to quantify that, right? Because we also seen the sales training. Okay, well, which one was it? It's the same sales training he actually goes to every year. Did it finally go through, or did it have something to do with the change in lifestyle? So I have a couple of comments. First of all, the wellness program in and of itself is typically not what we're seeing that helps a company with its healthcare spend. There are other things that we actually do, and me as a consultant, that come in and show them ways that they truly can save money on their healthcare spend. A wellness program in and of itself is just not one of those things. Just wanted to point that out real quick. The other side of this is we were talking specifically earlier about the C-suite, as it were, the executive level. How often have you seen a company put together a wellness or let's just say a really like an all-encompassing wellness just for their executives to get that team working at a higher rate, a better rate, a more cohesive unit, and have better health, so that there's a better potential for it to then trickle down to the folks below them?
Yeah, I think that's more along the lines of what I've probably seen more and reached out to more, is potential exploring opportunities like that. And I think it's easier, quite frankly, because it's smaller in scale.
Right.
And also you're going to get the buy-in easier from the people that are going to spend it, of course, because those people are the high earners and everything. So I think that is a common thing, and probably easier to get started. It is, because it's not as many people, and you can do usually some of those people, they have a requirement to get an annual physical a year, and they have some of these different things, and so that's easier. There's less red tape, there's less friction, and because things are already conducive and set up for that. And so the hard part is getting the whole company doing that.
Yeah.
But I tend to think, honestly, that's probably the best approach anyways, to start at the top.
Agreed.
And because then people are going to model the behaviors after what they see in those people. And those people are going to, hopefully, they should feel better by doing these things. And they're going to be like, wow, if I feel like this, I wonder what everybody else would do when they start feeling like this. And you just think, a lot of times you just want to give it to others when you really start feeling good.
Right.
And so I think in the future, I think more people should actually just really start there with a team and do something at a small scale with just those people, and gradually build it out over time to where it's, because therefore you're creating something financially, it's much more efficient, because you're not just spending all this big budget on something that you hope And it's just like building a business up, you're building this program up one small piece at a time that gradually gets better and better and better. And it's going to be different nuances. So how you take care of an executive wellness program is completely different than a all-encompassing organizational company corporate wellness program. Two totally different lifestyles, different things. And then also I think in the future, one of the things, because I'm actually writing about this, is that we have to think about other aspects of wellness, meaning like business travel, people traveling. That's an area that's not really addressed that much. We use this term in health a lot, bio-individuality. You hear this a lot. But I think there needs to be a sense of organizational bio-individuality, meaning that you can have certain foundational principles that apply to everyone, but male leaders, women leaders, different. There's some things that are different ages and everything. Those things can be factored in. You consider those things when you're designing it, and sure, it may take a little more work up front, but I believe the long term, the odds are going to be much higher because it's much more precise and unique to that specific organization and company.
Yeah. So let's talk about a different little group here. And we've kind of talked about companies maybe a little bit bigger, and they have their C-suite. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to like entrepreneurs and maybe even that sole proprietor, maybe they got a couple more people now. How important do you feel it is that the sooner they get in this type of culture of health, that the better it will be as they grow? In other words, if that culture of health is there to begin with, when you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, do you feel like that growth will then go that route, that they'll look for people more like themselves, right? Because you're attracting people like you, and you want people that are healthier, because if you understand how important that is now, and you're not seeing absentee problems with your core group because people are healthier, that would be the way that you want to grow. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and also, when you're small, this is a great way to have a competitive advantage, because some people are going to have more resource, and they're going to try to buy business, buy people coming into the thing. You probably don't have that as a small business to compete with the big budgets, but you do have things like this, and this is culture, something to look more exciting to. Going back to what I mentioned earlier of the work-life integration, work for most people is not their thing. Maybe for the owner, the entrepreneur themselves, work is definitely a part of them. But for most people, I want to do something I'm proud of, but I also want to have a great life as well. Realizing this as a small business owner with a small workforce right now, you can be highly adaptable and create this kind of unique ecosystem and culture that can attract these types of people that are looking for something that this is fun to work at. It's a good salary, but it also has these intangibles that a lot of other places don't have because they overlook those things. They try to buy it. They try to throw you a ping pong table or some beer pong on Friday. They try to throw you those things. But it's not this kind of thing of actually seeing the whole you as a human, completely a human, where it's not just work, it's social, it's relational. And even then you can do basic financial things to help put them in a position to succeed long term. And so I think that is a great way to not only just set yourself up for future success, but also to really be unique and attract yourself and compete against the big boys, the big dollars. And you think about this, people do this all the time, small business owners, when it comes to advertising and social media. A lot of the big companies are terrible at things like social media. They just have a budget for it and they just throw things at the wall.
Yeah.
Whereas a small business owner, there's a very set budget. And so you're going to be as creative as possible to get the most bang for the buck out of those little dollars that you allocated there. And so anything that you can do for free, that's even better. And setting culture is free. The only time, there's a little cost, but not too much. A lot of the cost is really just time and commitment of setting that standard and setting that culture at the beginning.
No, I think that's a great example of low cost or no cost that you as an entrepreneur out there, folks, you can do from the beginning. And I mean, let's be honest. If you're looking to run your business, but you're not spending any time on self-care, then it's really going to be a challenge. Let's just put it that way. It's going to be a bigger challenge than it would have been. If you're new to being an entrepreneur, no matter what age you are, it is a very stressful thing to do. I'm not saying that there's not people out there that just have the magic touch and man, it seems like they just, boom, all of a sudden it just took off. But in most cases, there's going to be failures. There's going to be a lot of challenges that go through it. And if your health is not right, it can lay you low pretty daggone quick. And I've seen people in pretty dire straits with their health because of some, obviously business concerns and financial issues on their business. It can cause that. So getting yourself right, both mentally and physically, it really starts with making sure that you take care of those things. There's a lot of mental stresses that can be alleviated in many ways by working out, by walking, by running, by adventuring, as it were, hiking, going places, breathing in clean air, getting out of the city some and doing what you can. Maybe you don't have that opportunity, but man, I tell you, a little bit of a physical exertion can clear the mind pretty well.
Yeah. And this word of resilience comes to mind. Yeah. And that's one of the things of why, as entrepreneurs, business owners, et cetera, entrepreneurs, that's one of the key things of why you take care of your health is for resilience. It becomes much more than just an aesthetic thing for us. It's about resilience, being able to endure, because it's going to take time. Anything you're going to have to worthwhile will take some time. And like you said, there's going to be some peaks and valleys with that. And so it's about resilience. And look at it this way. When you're training your body, you're not just training your body, but you're actually training your mind as well.
Right.
You're teaching yourself the skill of discipline. You're teaching yourself the skill of consistency. Both those traits are applicable to your professional world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julian, it has been quite a pleasure to have you on the show today. You are certainly a wealth of knowledge in the fitness world. I know that you've written a number of articles too that are out there on various different magazines. I really do appreciate you being here. Folks, if you want to go out and learn more about Julian, you can go to executivehealth.io. And there's all kind of great information in there. In fact, people can also get a report. Tell us about the optimal executive report that's out there.
Yeah, so that report is just, it's about 17 different tools and tactics that you can do right now to start living a more optimal life. And really, it's a choose your own adventure report, meaning don't do all 17 at once. Just pick one that seems to call to you more and then start there and then build from there.
Awesome. Great. So you guys go and check him out. Go out to executivehealth.io. You can find the report right there. Any closing comments for the audience today, Julian?
No, just to really reiterate what we've been talking about is just that really see yourself as the most valuable asset. And at times it may feel like you're taking time away from your business, from working by going to attend to your health, but the amount of dividends and that you're going to get from that is going to be tenfold on the back end. So really see the macro and don't get so stuck in the micro.
Absolutely. Hey, well said. You can also follow Julian on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Go out and check out more information about him. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are a C-level and you're looking to make changes, get your group all on the right road to health, be sure to reach out to him. I'm sure that he would be very happy to have a consultation with you, give you some advice, and maybe even become your new health coach. I am sure he would love that opportunity. Thank you again, Julian. Appreciate you being here on the Health and Wealth Power Hour. Folks, if you enjoy what we had to say today and you want to listen to some of the other episodes, don't forget to go out to HW Power Hour and subscribe. Every week, you can get the next episode dropped right into your inbox. Otherwise, of course, you can listen to us on any of the regular places that you digest your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you may listen to them. And don't forget some of the other events that we have every single month. On the last Tuesday of every month, 11 a.m. Central Time, join us for Why Does Healthcare Suck? That's right. Why Does Healthcare Suck? It is our monthly dive into all the craziness that is in our healthcare system. We help you to avoid some of the things that other people have seen. We have had all type of great discussions. In April, if you missed the episode where we discussed the crazy terminology that we use in the health insurance and healthcare industry, you missed quite a show. So be sure and go out there and find that episode on LinkedIn. You can also find it on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We do simulcast these every single month on all of those different platforms, so you can find them out there too. And then if you want to keep up with what's going on in the healthcare and health insurance world, we do our monthly Kickstart. That is at 10 a.m. Central Time, also simulcast across all of those different platforms. It is primarily on LinkedIn, but you can catch it on the other platforms as well. 10 a.m. Central Time, the Kickstart. Also, don't forget to go and follow me on LinkedIn if you'd like to. I am giving you updates. Harlan Pickett is where you can find me. There's only one of us out there on LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find. Thanks again for being with us today, and we'll catch you next time on the Health and Wealth Power Hour. We are